Hello everyone. Tonight we're working on Module 4, Lesson 8. And we are working with fractions of a set again, as we did in Lesson 7 and Lesson 6. And we're going to be relating multiplication of fractions to repeated addition. Let's start off by reviewing multiplication with whole numbers. For example, 2 times 6. There's a lot of different ways that we can think about 2 times 6. We could think of it as 6 times as much as 2. We can think of it as 6 plus 6. And we could think of 6 copies of 2. Or we could think of it as 2 plus 2, plus 2 plus 2, plus 2 plus 2. So every multiplication problem is actually a repeated addition problem, which is what we're going to focus on today. Now let's apply this thinking to 2/3 times 6. So if we think of this as repeated addition, we have 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus, whoops, that's a 3, plus 2/3 plus 2/3, or 6 copies of 2/3. Now, as you know, since our denominator is the same in each one of these, I could also write this. I could just put the denominator down here and add the numerators together. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And that also equals 2 times 6, because 6 copies of 2 is the same as 2 times 6 as my numerator over the denominator of 3, and of course that is the same as 12 over 3. Now I'm not going to ask you to go through all these steps of repeated addition each time, but I want you to see how they flow from one step to another, so when we get onto the next part, you'll understand why it works. Let's try again with 3/5 times 10. So I know that I have 10 copies of 3/5. I could write it as 3 plus 3. I could write it 3 plus 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 3 over 5. But I could also just write it as 3 times 10, or 10 copies of that numerator over 5. 3/5 added to itself 10 times. And so that's going to be 30/5. And because I have to multiply it to get my new numerator, and then my last step, since I have an improper fraction, is to divide the numerator by the denominator. Remember, this is a fraction problem, 30 divided by 5. And 30 divided by 5, of course, is a basic fact, and my answer will be 6. I'm going to show you another way to get the answer that includes using common factors. And this way we don't have to multiply and get such big numbers, and it's a little bit easier to multiply the fractions in our heads sometimes, although today I do want you to, if you find the answer in your head, I want you to use a scratch paper to check yourself before you put the answers on the Edpuzzle quiz. So 3/5 times 10, I'm still going to write it as 3 times 10 over 5. But now I want to look for numbers in the numerator and the denominator that have common factors. In other words, a number that I can multiply by to get these numbers. And of course, the one that pops out at me right away is 5. Both 5 will go into a 5 in my denominator, and 5 will also go into 10. So if I take, if I think about how many times will 5 go into 5, of course, it's 1 time. And how many times will 5 go into 10? It's 2 times. So now I can simplify the numbers that I'm multiplying. Up on top, now I have 3 times 2 as my new numerator, and that will be 6. And my denominator has now changed from a 5 to a 1, and so 6 over 1 is my improper fraction, which of course is just equal to 6. 6 divided by 1 will be 6, which is the same answer we got last time. I did not have to multiply and get numbers that were quite so large. Now it's your turn to do one. 7/6 times 24. And you may choose to simply multiply 7 times 24 and then divide that number by 6. You will definitely need to use a pencil and paper to work it out that way. If you want to use find a simplified version right off by using common factors, then you need to think about what number is a factor of both 6 and 24. And if you take those factors out, in other words, divide 6 by 6 and 24 by 6 before you do your multiplying, then the fraction you get will be much easier to turn into a whole number without doing complicated division. So either choose the long way or the short way. If you do find common factors and you do it in your head, please also do it on paper to check yourself before you write your answer on the Edpuzzle quiz. Here's a second one I'd like you to do, 7/6 times 27. Again, you can just multiply 7 times 27 to get your new to get your new numerator, and then divide that by 6 to find your whole number or mixed number. Or you can find the common factors and make the numbers smaller and easier to deal with. You'll notice that 6 does not go into 27. However, 6 and 27 do have a factor that's the same. So go ahead and find your answer, write it on the Edpuzzle quiz. One important thing we'll be doing in this topic is using multiplying by fractions to do conversions of units of measurement. And here's an example. 2/3 of an hour equals how many minutes? Now the first thing I'm going to have to do, since I have hours on one side of my equal sign and minutes on the other side, is I'm going to have to get minutes on both sides. And I know that an hour equals 60 minutes. So I'm going to replace that word hour with 60 minutes. And of course, 2/3 of an hour is the same as 2/3 times. So I've now got 2/3 times 60 minutes, and that will equal how many minutes? Now that I've done the strategic thinking for you, I'm going to let you actually do the math. 2/3 times 60 equals how many minutes? So check for common factors in the numerator and the denominator, and use those to help you keep the numbers under control, and then write down the answer on the Edpuzzle quiz. And I'll see you in class tomorrow.